Wow, this is probably my fifth time trying to record this because every time I try to touch on the subject, I veer off into something else and tell you a whole other thing that you didn't need to know, or not yet. Maybe you do. We're converging at a time where the why and the what needs to come together. Okay, so I can't just make a video about what it is, about a few subjects that I can teach you, okay? Because I need to tell you about why I'm doing it and why I'm doing anything with my life right now. It comes from something super personal. Because that's what you want to know. That's what matters. That's what it comes down to. That's what's related to everybody else in their lives. It's just simple shit that I feel like we are collectively dealing with. It's just not publicly acknowledged as something that everybody knows. It's something that we all know, but it's not known that we all know. Somebody needs to say it so that maybe we can just all feel better about talking about it. So I feel like we have to hide shit because it's like, I'm not here trying to bring judgment upon people. Again, no animosity in life, but all I want to do is talk about how I think about the world. And I couldn't have gotten to it without going the longest route and veering off and procrastinating. I didn't know what I was trying to get to. If you're trying to find something like a lost land, you can't find it if you don't even know what you're looking for. And I didn't. But this way of thinking is a culmination of things that already existed. Now it's just putting it together and presenting it in a way that you guys can understand without you thinking that it's a cult. Through a combination of personal anecdote and visual proof, maybe I can find a better way to say what I need to say without it feeling like I'm trying to explain myself. That's how I'm gonna think about it. Maybe I've said it before, or you've seen it in some things that I've written. There's two types of people in the world: temporal and spatial. And through the double diamond, I'm trying to show you all that we can work together. Temporal and spatial are just extremes in this binary that I'm choosing as lenses to see through. And for a long time, these two types of thinkers, let's say, we got thinkers and seers, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right way to talk about it. But the shadows of both sides have been battling it out. There's been a lot of shit talking. There's a lot of projecting our own shadows or what we feel inadequate onto what we don't know about the other. And fine, I've just about heard both sides of that. Through this hermiting phase, I've realized that there's no use in talking about it that way because I've already been there. I've already done that during a time when I've been more focused on everything around me and being a part of this outside world, to be unique but also a part of it, right? To be individual and fully myself, but also to not piss anybody off. That's another paradox. It's just like fucking impossible to be. The temporal people believe the spatial people are so aesthetically driven. And yes, maybe we could be a little shallow, or maybe we're not good collaborators, but maybe it's just that we haven't seen the other side of it. I'm saying in this enlightenment of spirituality as a business, I find myself in the process of doing this right now, and that we all need to make this transition between spatial and temporal. between understanding our world as space and as time. Because there's absolutely necessary, crucial, meaningful human uses to seeing both sides. And I'm using the double diamond as a framework that I found broad enough to encompass, to talk about this. And also because I've seen it in so many industries. First, we're going back to the binary, back to the incarnation cross. So every person in their birth chart, in their astrology, in their human design, or gene keys, or what, if you ever choose to look into that, every person has an incarnation cross, meaning at the center of their being is an incarnation cross of the outer planets in our solar system and the stars and alignments. And I'm not talking about it, but in the right terms right now. But what I'm going to start with is the binary that I've been talking about for a long time. The yang and the yin, I will be mentioning in that order. All right. The yang, time, temporal. You'll see it as being a vertical line. In other places, it represents lightning, right? This instant strike. It's also spirit, and also represents masculine energy. It's focus. It's sagittal plane, right? My teacher Sean said, it's a plane that cuts the body in half. You can think of it as the Sagittarius sign with the bow, right? It's focus and drive and will. It's light, and it's also information. It comes all at once, all right? It's speed, it's crashing, it's okay? And then the other side of the binary, the zero, but is actually one dimension up in folded space, is the horizontal line. It is the sea. It is the feminine energy. It is spatial. It is space. And in psychology, I found out that it's also in the realm of the mind. It's also called being territorial. You see that? It's really interesting. So that there makes up the 4 quadrants of the incarnation cross. Okay. So whenever I say temporal, I'm referring to time. Spatial, referring to space. Temporal, people, well, you have drive, you have will to act, and you're probably full of energy. Perhaps you're more organized and high functioning, and you're very good at time management and productivity. And you'll notice that a lot of the people that you've been managing are exactly not that. And those are the people who are spatially inclined, like myself, who needs help in time management and probably executive function, whatever. I'm just gonna say it. So when I flip this around, when I unfold the incarnation cross, this unfolded dimension down, and you'll see here, I've rotated my notebook 90 degrees. I've began the drawing of a double diamond, and in its double diamond, we are showing the same things, but just more complexity. The temporal dimension has now become horizontal, the spatial become vertical. It has been rotated 90 degrees as well. Here, the temporal the horizontal axiom represents measurable empirical data. So it's linear, the 4-dimensional linear flow of time, meaning at the convergence of lines, at the crossings of lines, on this line, that is where space and time meets. That's where we can have a meeting at this specific coordinate, in that conference room on that 3rd floor of this building at this address. At this time, it's can finally quantify when we're all meeting. Before that, there are these extra dimensions. There's that extra dimension that we don't get to see. Those are stretched out by space, by spacey people. Those are the people that you can't get in contact with sometimes, and they just won't answer you and just don't know what they're doing, or that they're just not very online consistently. Or maybe they don't have a set schedule or routine because they simply don't follow or like routines much. Those are people who might be late to meetings or go over time with things, or get completely lost in conversation for hours, or binge watch TV shows. Just not much moderation, right, with time. So as you'll see, the further that you stray from this four-dimensional linear flow of time, the more you get into dark energy, the more time dilates, and you're just not really sure where they are. If you were managing somebody and you're trying to pay them for their time, it's very difficult to manage time. It's very difficult because they're not constantly with you on the same dimension. You both are not looking at the same thing. They might be in their head, they might be dwelling on something, they might be working away and not really even paying attention, right? Because time requires attention. So if their attention is something somewhere else, like on a project or whatever task they're doing, or maybe not there at all, then you're completely unaware of where they are in the progress, in the bigger scheme of things. They're usually the people doing the design work or the creative work. And in the process of doing that, you've completely, depending on how creative they're trying, level of creativity or abstraction, I'd say the more abstract, the key there, what I found out is that you must forego time. The more that you're trying to count time, the more attention that you're paying to how much time is passing, the less you are in the thing that you are trying to do. There's that paradox. And the other thing, it's not a linear line of productivity. And you've probably already seen this. It's easy to quantify, or it's easy to track the productivity of an assembly line or a machine that cranks out this in this amount of time. The creative work, it's a curved line. Some of it requires just a lot of working on it, a lot of messing up, a lot of wasted or seemingly wasted time. And then sometimes it arrives in an instant epiphany. And that's what I've heard from a lot of creatives say, that their most brilliant ideas came to them in that moment. So it's like these two types of people who have to fit themselves in a specific box, so then one can manage the other effectively and get to, let's say, just this midpoint of the project. This midpoint where this tension between people, God, there's so much tension in a project team when this space that you see on this page literally, I'm trying to say, it literally represents the space between people not communicating, or just, or believing that they're not connected at all, or just dark energy, things that we don't know about the other person or what they're doing, or a lot of the unknowns, and we're just gonna have to work with it, right? It's so easily filled in by our own minds. But once we're approaching to this convergence, where the tension resolves because we're all coming together in a single space and time again, and meeting so we can communicate about the information and get on the same level as a team, establish trust again, share the latest progress, review the client presentation that we're going to give next week. It is a sink of space and time, of information and knowledge. That is the first diamond. I'm just going to say that's just one diamond, but there's always two, because everything in nature is created twice. And the second diamond allows you to take the first diamond and mutate it in a way that still takes all the previous information, but it's created a second time in a new form, or just a little bit different. So this is kind of why I've been thinking so hard about it, because I've experienced it in my life only on one side of it. And now making this transition to seeing myself as a business, to running a business, is I have to do a full inversion. I have to be everything that I'm not. Me particularly, I'm saying that I'm being dramatic in that case because of what I've learned about myself. Okay? Because of being a spatially inclined person who is temporally challenged. And the single line, this horizontal line that spans the full picture of creation, is the project timeline that I can't seem to try to structure in my head. Because that's how I understand something, right? Through understanding what I'm not. I'm sharing this with y'all because both sides, the temporal and the spatial, and I am, this is only a theory, and it's maybe those terminologies only apply right now because we're experiencing large generations passing, or just the turning point of generations that are syncing with the turning point of industrial age, lots of expansion to this next age, the information age. And maybe that the industrial age required a lot of divergent methods and people. And then the information age is like, it's probably the most confusing ass time that ever existed in time. It is like exactly what Kali Yuga is, the age of darkness, because information is light, but if information is all scattered all over the freaking place, then darkness permeates every little thing. And everything becomes shades of gray, and we've lost completely our understanding of what borders are, boundaries are. We've lost the path if we don't even know what's black and white. If I keep talking, I might go nuts. Maybe I already am. I'm highly practical, so in order for me to believe something, I must be presented with thorough information that all fits together and integrates seemingly. It's just I can't focus on shit, so it's taking me a while. If you're watching this and you made it until this point, there's a way we can work together. There's gotta be. Thanks for watching.